4% of global greenhouse gas emissions, yet it is the most vulnerable region to the devastating impacts of climate change. Isn't that worrying? So we need to gather because we are most affected. Priorities will then be aligned to respond to this problem. As Makerere University Business School, we are proud to have Honorable Minister. You're very welcome to open the conference officially.
Allow me use, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Two apologies. Number one, last year I was invited to come for the first conference. Unfortunately, I was also sent for another meeting. I could not attend. My apology. Secondly, this morning I was called at 9:30 to come and stand in for the Minister for Finance. I took another 1 hour to reach here. Why? Because we don't have climate resilient transport system in Kampala. I accepted to stand in for the Minister of Finance. Again, this is my second time for standing in for the Minister of Finance. The first one was with investors, donors, by UDB in Baku, Azerbaijan. I also stood in for the Minister for Finance. This is now the second one, but I'm not the Minister for Finance. My name is Biyika Songa, Member of Parliament for Ura County in Zombo District in West Nile. And in Parliament, I chair the Parliamentary Committee on Climate Change. Before that, I had chaired the Parliamentary Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. And I had also been the chair of the Parliamentary Forum on Climate Change since 2017. Before I came to Parliament, I had also been working around this space. In the Horn of Africa, I was based in Hargeisa in Somaliland, but working in Somaliland, Somalia, Yemen, and Ethiopia. After that, I worked in Southeast Asia as a technical advisor on environment and development. In Mekong, I was based in Vientiane, Laos, but I was working in Laos, Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, and Vietnam. I saw someone doing some studies in Vietnam. And then I came back in 2015 and joined the politics. And I became the chair of the Climate Change Committee. This is basically about myself. We want to close the finance gap, the climate finance gap in Africa. To do that, we need to close gaps right from our household. If we are spending too much in our household, then we must close that gap. About simple things before I read the speech of the minister. If we are using firewood and charcoal and we are spending a lot on it, let us close that gap. If we are having so many cars at home, let us also reduce on those cars and close that gap. That will also be climate finance because we shall be saving. We have a lot of waste we are generating. Some waste could come even from our household. I don't know how many pair of shoes some of you have, how many, the wardrobe is full, but you are not even using that. If you reduce that number, you can also close some gaps. And so, this is very important that these simple things are taken seriously. I like the people who created this program. They closed all the gaps on the paper. So if we are printing in our offices on one side of the paper, that means there is still a gap. I don't know whether I'm talking the right thing. Because the more papers we use, the more trees we have to cut. So, this is very important that we do these simple things to make big impact. And I'm also happy that all of us are working together. Government, civil society, academia, private sector, we are all working together. This is very, very important. And I also want to thank the team that came here and performed. They call themselves Pologoma. They perform very well because we need music, dance, and drama to pass this awareness so that it becomes like a climate change entertainment. But the message will go. So this is very, very important. Now, if we do all these practices, those costs avoided, if we are using good appliances at our homes, that means we are spending less on water, less on... Uganda was participating in climate change initiatives and negotiations and so on, but there was no climate change law in the country. Gap number one. Gap number two, civil society, government, academia, and private sector, and everybody was talking about climate change. But there was no one taking the information to come and present on the floor of Parliament because there was a gap. There was no climate change committee that could present this on the floor of Parliament. Number three, there was a gap that we realized that there was no climate fund in Uganda. And many ministries, departments, and agencies, and also the local governments were crying that they don't have money at the grassroots to implement climate change initiatives because there was no climate change fund. So when I came and I became the chair, I became the chair of the forum. My target was to see that we work with our colleagues to close these gaps. And I can assure you, in place in Uganda. I can also assure you, right now we have a climate change committee that can take your views from now and tomorrow it is presented on the floor of Parliament. We failed to get a climate change fund because Minister of Finance said we have created so many funds, youth fund, women fund. The management was becoming very complex. But we said, how do we get money to ensure that we have climate change funds that can go up to the local government? So in the law, we said, no way, we are going to put a condition. And that condition was, we provided for a certificate in the law that no budget of any ministry, department, or agencies of government in Uganda can pass on the floor of Parliament unless it is accompanied with a certificate, like the gender certificate, showing that after evaluation by NPA, Minister of Water and Environment, showing that there is substantial amount of money put in the budget to address climate change. It is in the law. Now, why are these ministries, departments, and agencies still crying that there is of the budget framework paper? The period between budget framework paper and the ministerial policy statement is only one month. And there are so many parameters to analyze. I'm happy that I'm in the right place. I'm calling upon you, government, and especially academia and civil society, to help in that analysis. So that once those parameters are analyzed, it will show to us whether there's a substantial amount of money put in the budget or not. So that was our effort to close the gaps. But also, with all these initiatives I've mentioned, I want to thank some organizations, one of which is UNFAO, another one is GIZ. I think GIZ is represented here. They've been very instrumental in supporting the forum to do all this. I want to thank GIZ. We also want to thank World Aid, Netherlands. We want to thank Parliamentary Partners for Resilience. We want to thank, lately now we want to thank UNCDF. I think there is a representative here. When we were here, we launched the local. I spoke in this same hall when UNCDF started funding the local project. Fortunately, they also picked my district. We are just calling upon people to support UNCDF so that UNCDF can continue to support these districts to address especially climate resilient infrastructure in Uganda. So I want to thank, can we clap for all these parts? I also want to thank the academia for taking very important initiative to address climate change in Uganda and in Africa. I want to thank also the banks. There was a presentation which was earlier. They were all good presentations that were before me. They were all very important. But one question remains: who is funding? Who is giving money to some of these developers to go and put their industries in fragile ecosystem? So we need, as banks, also to analyze this carefully in our work to see that we evaluate all proposals that come to us so that we can address this challenge, the big challenge facing us. Basically, these are my remarks. I came here to make my remarks and invite the minister, but I ended up being delegated. Oil and gas underground. Let us also leave coal underground. Let us leave every fossil fuel underground. If we are going to use it, and then our target should be to focus on attaining a net zero. It means that what you generated will be absorbed. I think the academic people know it better. So let us do it in a sustainable way. Now, with these few remarks, thank you very much. Climate change is not a distant threat. It is a present reality that demands immediate and collective efforts. Colleagues, I'm sure you saw what happened last week on Wednesday in Kampala when flash floods happened. Very sorry for the lives and properties lost. So you can see that climate change threatens to undo a number of development gains if our development plans are not climate resilient. Therefore, there is need for additional finance mashed up with the ever-scaring, soaring adaptation mitigation needs, as articulated in the Uganda's costed nationally determined contribution at $28.1 billion until the year 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is now to shift from business as usual to more innovative approaches that will facilitate access to more predictable, large-scale climate finance. According to the most recent UN Emission Gap Report 2024 by the United Nations Environment Programme, countries remain largely off track in meeting the Paris goals in terms of pledging and providing climate finance needed to deliver a quantum leap in ambition that will give the world a chance of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. We are also receiving several communications of developed countries cutting on their budgets for climate finance and official development aid. This is therefore a very worrying trend, ladies and gentlemen. Considering the current challenges we are facing in terms of climate-induced disasters, the Loss and Damage Fund that was adopted at COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, has since not mobilized the funding commensurate to the needs of developing countries. And this is causing a lot of pressure on government to borrow money at non-concessional rates to manage these disasters. Colleagues, you can see how we struggle as government with managing the landslide issues in Bududa, River Nyamwamba cases, among others. However, as a country, we have prepared our regulatory framework in advance to address the evolving environment for sustainable finance through aligning financial systems and investment practices with national climate and green economic goals. The foundation for this effort is laid out in Uganda's Vision 2040, which aspires to a modern, prosperous country committed to environmental preservation and sustainable economic growth. Therefore, the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development has undertaken some of the following interventions to scale and accelerate climate finance mobilization and utilization. To cushion the economy, socio-economic infrastructure, and livelihoods against the adverse effects of climate change. In line with its climate finance mobilization mandate stipulated in the National Climate Change Policy of 2015 and the National Climate Change Act of 2022, the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development created a climate finance unit. This unit is exactly 2 years old as of this March 2025 and has delivered well in actual climate finance mobilization and coordinating related efforts in short term. Government of Uganda, led by the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, through the Climate Finance Unit, has concluded the development of National Climate Finance Strategy 2024-2030, a strategic framework that provides a roadmap for climate finance mobilization from both national and international sources, as well as its efficient utilization to support adaptation mitigation efforts in the country. Initial capitalization of the Uganda Development Bank Climate Finance Facility with Uganda shilling 50 billion in 2023 and an additional 1.2 trillion in 2025. This fund is promoting a green economy by financing investments in the sectors of climate-smart agriculture, renewable energy, sustainable waste management, climate-resilient infrastructure, low-carbon industry, and ecotourism. Availing low-interest green financing represents government's commitment to enhance financial access for green enterprises, including the small and medium enterprises, as articulated in the Green Growth Financing Strategy 2017-2018 to 2030-2031. Ladies and gentlemen, let me use this opportunity to inform you that the Ministry of Finance has also developed a 10-fold growth strategy that aims to grow Uganda's economy in the next 15 years from $50 billion to $500 billion by 2040, targeting 4 key sectors: agro-industrialization, tourism, mineral development, including oil and gas, science and technology, and innovation, including ICT, research, and development, has been timely organized to facilitate climate finance while exploring opportunities for unlocking the same needed climate finance to deliver our national development agenda. However, as we discuss climate financing component, let us undertake certain actions that reduce pollution, even at household level, that reduce our carbon footprint, such as adoption of technologies. The government is already availing subsidized liquefied petroleum gas cylinders, among others, efforts including forceful evacuation of people from wetlands. I would like to reiterate that the government to supporting initiatives that promote climate resilient economic growth and invites all stakeholders such as the academia, the private sector, development partners, civil society, among others, to work together in delivering the tenfold growth economy and to leverage on every opportunity to scale climate finance mobilization. The MOB's Climate Finance Sustainability Center for working closely with my ministry through the Climate Finance Unit, other partners who have organized this